Everyone, so excited to be here as always. Even more excited when I have my good friends Kelly and Jason with us
Yay.
today. Great colleagues and people that I've gotten to know over time, and I highly recommend. It's a good opportunity if you're aligned with the message or with what everybody's doing to use this as a networking opportunity to expand your reach and get to know people who you've gotten to know through this show but now more directly. Chat's wide open. We depend on chat to make us relevant and to really provide the quality takeaways that justify everybody's time, effort, and resources today. So, with that, let me turn it over to Kelly, and Kelly can give you a little bit of an update. First thoughts on mental health, and then we'll swing it over to Jason. Kelly, welcome.
Yeah, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. Yeah, and mental health. I mean, it is Mental Health Awareness Month on top of Military Appreciation Month. So, obviously, a topic that is near and dear to my heart for so many reasons. One of the reasons I started live streaming for sure was my own mental health. And then just watching how it really impacted everyone else's mental health, how people initially, Don, when you and I started doing this together, gosh, coming up on a year and a half ago, which is nuts.
I know.
Uh, I mean, and watching how community and support, how it did impact people's mental health, framing their day and giving them a good takeaway or just a charge for the day. Because it was a very much a focus on mindset and supporting one another. And I think that's what, mental health, we want it to be just a regular conversation. We all have it.
Mhm.
It's like our physical health. We talk about that, and that's a common accepted thing. But somehow mental health has that little bit of a stigma still to it that's negative. Like you have to be diagnosed with something or be on medication, and it's like nope, we all have it, and it fluctuates. Because there's things happening in the world, whether you're losing a job, losing a relationship, um, moving, any kind of big change that impacts our mental health. And how do we do that? And what a great support to have around us, but community and help us through those things and understand that we're never alone, no matter what we're going through, and no matter how horrible we may think our thoughts are. I promise you, somebody else has had them, and you're not alone. Reach out to someone. And I want to repeat something before I turn it over to Jason. Is I heard this great thing. Ben Owen and Jess Owen of We Fight Monsters in Flanders Fields. I adore them. If anyone doesn't know them, do follow them. They do amazing things for their communities, turning hash houses into hope houses, helping veterans, people get sober. They do things with human trafficking. I mean, it's just incredible what they do. But Ben made a comment about how he gets so many props and applauses for how he helps people out, that he extends the hand. And he said, I'm not the hero. The heroes are the ones that reach up and grab that hand.
Mhm.
And it's like, yes, because it is so hard for us as human beings to ask for help. We're willing to do it for anyone that's in our, if someone asks that's around us that we care and love about, we can't quickly enough say, yes, what can I do to help you? But when we're struggling, it's so hard to ask for help. So knowing that you are the hero when you reach out and ask for help, no matter how big or small you think it is, um, I think I want to leave it right there for the start.
Well, that's beautiful to wait to start this out. It's so inspiring, and it says so much about the opportunities that are available, especially online, that weren't years ago. That you really had to use your network, or you had to expose yourself to people who knew you a little too well. And now I know Kelly has a wonderful program, Awesome Journey, with Christy Howard, where you can hear a lot of these stories and really find individuals and groups and communities that are there for you. It's not a bother. You're actually supporting their efforts to support other people's efforts. So it's really a chain. And the tighter it gets, the more important and valuable it can be. Real quick, Omar's here. Want to show comments because it's like a tip jar. Once you start showing comments, everybody else starts throwing something in. Thank you, Omar. I always promote his Zoom party and his other shows. He's a real giver, and he's a wonderful person. And I think that's one thing that I've gotten to appreciate is being a good person is primary to everything else. And everybody that I've had on recently and continue are really good people that I've pretty much vetted through experience and somebody you can trust and believe in. Kerry's here with his daily joke. Why is a piano so hard to open? Because the keys are on the inside. That's better than most. So keep it up. Says hello to Omar. Also to Kelly, says Kerry Cheeson says, thanks, Kelly, for saying we're not alone. I needed to hear that. I'm still trying to get going for a job in IT or cyber. I'm still stuck right now. Well, just having that hope, that knowledge that you're not alone. There's a lot of people walking that journey around you and with you. And it's just making yourself known. And I think you're doing it by participating in these shows, commenting. Everybody's pulling for you. And that's an important thing. So, Jason, starting off really well. How do you top what Kelly just said? Or at least answer?
You don't. That's the key, right? You don't, and you don't try. Some great things there, and I'm going to touch on them a little bit too. I think I came into this today. This is my life. This is my world. Mental health is what I'm passionate about. I'm blessed enough to have that be my career as well. Also helping people with their mental health journey in different aspects. Whether I'm dealing with community or one-on-one with people, it's so important. It's something that's, I think most of us that are in this field, it's touched us during our life personally, whether it's us ourselves or our family members or things of that nature. And we all have stories. And that's part of what we're going to talk about today. I came in today really because of that. I came in today a read in the wind. I just wanted to go with the flow and see where this conversation takes us. I wrote a couple notes down, a couple things just so I don't get, so I can seem like I know what I'm talking about. But really want to see where this conversation goes and how we can help people the most. Kelly had mentioned something about doing these live streams and stuff, and our new epidemic is loneliness. And, that's from a lot of different reasons. A lot of different things are going on in our world right now that's kind of feeding into that. And, people are working from home, which is great. I think we've realized that you can do that and still be connected. We just had to also shift our mindset as to how do we connect with the other person? Instead of having people just pop into your cubicle, so to speak, all the time and seeing people physically, you have to actually make an effort to connect with people. And I think that's just a relearning for us. And so that's one thing that's very important, is that don't expect to get the same results from doing or get different results doing the same thing. We have to change that, and we have to reach out. Kelly also talked about reaching out, thinking about it, just kind of a play on words, about where to start. Being this month is Mental Health Awareness Month, and that's the theme, is where to start. And the three aspects how I broke it down is to explore, take action, and speak up. And we'll get into that as we go, because that's gonna touch it. But really look at where you're at, where others are at, take action. We talked about that yesterday, Don. You have to take action, and that's that control. And a lot of issues with around mental health come from you don't feel you're at control anymore. You feel that you're at the effect of the world, and you have to take that back and be at cause for your life. And that's one of the things I start with. When I start with clients, that's the first thing we do is, are you at the effect of things? Are you at cause for your life? Do you recognize that you're at cause for your life? So a lot of good stuff, and that I'll leave it there, and let's see where the day takes us.
Well, that's terrific. And I think, we're starting to make some real important points. What we have to appreciate is support is something that gives you some room or some time to get out of your situation. A hand down matched with a hand up can now bring you forward. And I think once you identify that support, utilize it, lean on somebody for a little bit, and you can't depend on them forever. Support's only there as long as you're worthy of it, but know it's there. And the support also comes with perspective and attitude. And that's something that people can enhance on their own. What are you reading? What are you watching? Who are you spending time with? What are your habits? Self-reflection is so important, because you want to get, your ducks in a row before you go out for something, because those are questions people are going to ask you, right? Are you exercising? Are you eating well? Just simple things that you do every day, making little bits of progress, taking baby steps, even moving forward, get you off of your static situation or maybe a regressive situation. And things like gratitude, it's talked about all the time. You can't really start thinking of what's not working for you or with you when you're not taking into consideration all your blessings. Just the miracle of life, just being here is incredible to have gotten to here. And then living in a beautiful, best country in the world, in my opinion, with so much opportunity. And now also having a good quality voice that's accepted. And we also talk about finding safe environments, non-judgmental environments. A lot of times you've been playing to an unsupporting crowd who keeps telling you you're not good enough, you're not this, you're not this. And the key is nobody's where they're going to be until they get there. Yesterday doesn't support you tomorrow unless you're supporting yourself tomorrow. And everybody starts the day fresh. So it's easy to say when you feel you're on top of it. But I know all of us, including everybody on the panel today, wakes up with days that are not what they hoped they would be, right? And then wakes up with days that are just so wonderful and exciting and interesting. And knowing the peaks and valleys and not judging things in a smaller time frame. But I know working with Kelly, working with Jason, I can see the improvements. I could see people who were just focused on learning who are now shifted to teaching what they've learned. And I think that's the beauty of being gratified, to say, maybe they don't recognize it, but I definitely see it. And the beauty of some of this, you can go back on videos and see how you were, see what you were talking about, and now measure that. And the other key thing before I switch it over to Kelly is center of influence, right? Who is your circle? Who is your group that is accepting of you, supporting of you, and rooting for you? And it's a lot better to have people in the stands that are calling your name out and congratulating you on things you might not have thought were important, but it gives you hope, gives you confidence. So Kelly, it's so fun and worthwhile to be learning from so many great people who have actually started from further behind in a lot of cases. I know a lot of guests you have on the show, if you were to look at where they were when they were at their lowest,
yeah,
you would never think they're going to rise to this occasion. So what have you gained through all of these different interactions and communications with so many important people?
Yeah, I mean, wow, I can't even, there's not even one I could choose. It's everyone, right? I think there's such a thing about, and one of the things I will say that helped me about doing live streaming, quite frankly, is about being present and reminding myself, I preach this and I practice it as well, is about being present and actively listening. And how rich that is for us as we ground ourselves and listen to other people's experiences from a place of non-judgment. And I think that's such a beautiful spot to be, because guess what? I don't care about all the check boxes that society wants to put on us, which quite personally I think are ridiculous. Because we're all looking for the same things. We have that need as humans to be wanted, needed, and to feel love. And when we remove all of that stuff and we see that it's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that behind that smile, behind those eyes, behind that position, behind that warrior is a human being. And we forget that sometimes. And I think, one of the good things that you just mentioned too, so many good things that you both talked about, but life is about ups and downs. And I can't remember who said this either, so I apologize for not giving you props. But life is about ups and downs, and that's a heartbeat. That shows us that we're living. We don't want to flatline at anything. And another thing I say quite regularly, because I think it's so important, And Jason, I want your thoughts on this for sure. Is, I've been going to counseling on and off and have life coaches in my life for decades, because we can go through something and be like, okay, now I feel better. I'm at a baseline. I feel good. I can, do my thing. But it's not like we're done. I think life is a continued evolution of who we become and where we're supposed to go, and getting through hard things over and over again. That's just part of life. And a great example, I think, is like, we can't go to the gym and work out and get like in great shape and be like, man, I'm killing it right now. And be like, I'm done. I don't need to go to the gym ever again because I'm rocking it. You got to go back to maintain. And I think that's such an important thing about our mental health is it's going to waver, and sometimes it's going to need more attention. You're going to need to go to the gym a little bit more often to get results. And that's okay. And I think it's also okay to have those moments where you're like, I don't even know what's wrong with me. I just don't feel right. Because that tends to keep people stuck. And I think another thing I want to go back to and make a point on is gratitude is such an incredible thing. I do a 5-minute journal, and I've been doing one for years. And you don't even need to buy one. You can use a notebook that you get at a dollar store. And you start your day writing down 3 things that you're grateful for and that you want out of your day. And then at the end of the day, you write 3 things that you're grateful for that happened in the day. Your mindset about how you begin and end your day is everything. Because what we do is, if I go into, and I like to use corporate America as an example, because it's true, and it's one I can relate to, going into a boardroom meeting and going, God, this is going to suck. I'm going to take in every bit of information to prove the belief that I have that this meeting is going to suck. And I will walk away going, this meeting sucked. See, I told you it was going to suck because of this, this, and this. But if you go in saying, this meeting's going to be great, I'm going to have some great takeaways, and I'm going to make the best of it, I will pull the pieces of information to prove the belief that I have going into that meeting. And I will leave going, man, that was so much better than I expected because I got this, this, and this out of it. It's because of our mindset. And it sounds so simple, I think, when we say it, because a lot of people sometimes do say like, oh God, the gratitude thing and mindset. And it's like, well, everyone says it because it's true. So I think that's just always a good reminder. When you're feeling off, go back to the basics and start small. So I think I'll leave it right there this time.
Well, I think you give us so many opportunities to really expand on. And one is, how do you get set up, right? If you just had a little store, you'd open a little bit earlier and you'd start cleaning, or you start, putting things in the right position, maybe whatever it is. But at a certain point, say, I'm right to open. And it's kind of rehearsing without work to say, how do I get as well prepared and have my mental attitude as sharp as possible?
Yeah.
And then how am I projecting that? If you come in like a weeping willow all the time, and you're just shuffling along and mumbling, you're not going to inspire yourself. You're not going to be an inspiring force for anybody else. And most of the time, people complicate things into just getting to know someone. Hello, how are you doing today? Before you say, well, what's your project? Right? I mean, take a moment to get friendly in a professional way and show that you care about them. I mean, how many times do people say, and the most successful salespeople take notes, hey, it was Johnny's birthday on August 12th. Well, when I talk to my client, I'm going to ask about his son, Johnny, and how the birthday went, right? It's just those simple investments you make that say, you're important to me. I want to be here to help you. And also be able to help yourself, right? Where you're going in with a head of steam instead of hoping someone kind of completes you. One other thing, again, no matter how confident, how healthy you may be, you're connected to a lot of other individuals. So if a spouse gets sick, it affects your situation now. If someone loses their job, that affects your situation. So no one's an island, right? Everybody's connected directly or indirectly to something or somebody else. And the other thing is, when things are good, take advantage of them. When you're feeling great, enjoy it. Milk it as much as you can. Sit down and write it down and how you're feeling, take pictures, because that's where you're going to build from. And you, just like Kelly says, is what you expect is what will probably happen, because you'll attract it. And what you want for yourself, the key word to everything, I believe, is hard work. You got to work at something to get something. And you have to work on it, like Kelly mentioned, in a sustainable way. I would rather exercise 2 blocks and do it every day than go for 2 miles and then say after 4 days, that's tiring, that's tough. And where are you? Back on the couch, right? And I don't think that's a place people who want to move forward want to sit down in. So Jason, what's all your wonderful additions to this?
So much good stuff today. I want to read a quote, and it's truly where I come from, and it kind of speaks to everything we're saying. And it's from Carl Jung. He knew a little bit about this stuff. The quote is, "Know all the theories, master all the techniques, but as you touch a human soul, be just another human soul."
That's beautiful.
And that's really where I come from with people, is like, I'm trained, I know all this stuff, I know all these techniques, I can sit with you and I can see what's going on and I can see how I'm going to help you. But there's times when I just sit and just be another human soul and just let them talk and let them say what they need to say and have that safe space. We talk about safe space, and just have a place where they can share and know that there's going to be, I don't have anything in my heart but helping them. That's my only thing I'm there for. I'm not there to judge them. I'm not there to say, oh, well, I've seen this before, or, oh, I'm going to learn something new from this one, So that's something that's very important I want to mention. To kind of go back to some of Kelly's points, I use this saying a lot, and I love the saying where, the quote about when was the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time was today. And that means take action, building that toolbox. And it's great to have those toolboxes, and we get caught sometimes. Life shows up and we think things are going to go swimmingly, and take advantage of them. Like you said, Don, when it's sunny out, go outside. I like to go out in the rain too, so I won't, but you know what I'm saying? Like, take advantage of those times. But it's a moment to reflect. And when bad things show up in your life, or negative things show up in your life, if you haven't built those tools, it could be a lot more challenging. I went through a personal experience where I went through something pretty major in my life, and I had toolboxes and I had stuff, but I didn't have enough for what happened. And it hit me really hard. And I was trying to read my very first book by Thich Nhat Hanh, the Zen Buddhist monk, was Pieces Every Step. And that was a very hard book for me to read at the time, because, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Grumble, grumble, grumble. And we come from that place sometimes. But I got through, and it did help me. But if I would have read that book 10 years earlier and I got to that point, I would have had built up that muscle. So to use that same analogy for that. So it's nice to have those tools in your toolbox now when the sun is shining. Build up that shelter you need. The other thing is to Kelly's point, in my work, we talk about generative change. So I try to help people to have tools so they can. I'm going to be very careful with this one. Generative change is that they have the tools to be able to go on and handle this stuff in the future. However, things change and different things show up. And that's why I work with clients that the longest client I've had was over 2 years. And we worked on her presenting issue, what she showed up for, and a little bit deeper, because, of course, we don't always see it. That's why we go to somebody else for help. And I helped her clear some things out, start on the path that she wanted to, really going forward. And then some other things showed up with her parents. And we worked on that and kind of got her those tools around that. And then something showed up in a relationship, And so there could be a common thread, and I try to help them find that and work on that. But at the same time, life, it just keeps happening. Kelly's point, it's like a heartbeat. It just keeps happening. And so it is nice to have that. And it doesn't have to be somebody that you pay to go and see, trust me, it's my world. And I think it's definitely helps, but you also build those relationships. and you have those people in your life that you know that you can trust and you can go to and you can share with each other, and it becomes reciprocal. And that's the key, is give and take. I want to talk about gratitude, but I'm gonna let it go. So I'm gonna that's it for
Well,
now.
I think we're covering some really great points because we've experienced everything we're talking about. And we know if we're going through it, everybody's going through it at a different time, in a different way. And some people are good, and then the dam breaks, right? I mean, it's like lifting weight. You can do so much, and if you add too much more, you can't handle it anymore. The other is a lot of people understand that some things in life aren't fair, aren't justified, right? I mean, if someone rear ends you while you're driving, I mean, that isn't right. I mean, it wasn't you, it was them that caused it. But, I think that's where people go wrong, is they look at blame instead of how do we repair, right? Car got smashed. Well, the next step is, where do I take it to get it fixed? Not how do I focus just on the past that isn't going to change and then use it as excuses, because there's so many people say, because of my childhood, because of my parents, I became this. Well, at a certain point, you got to just take ownership of where you are and who you are. May not be easy, but I think the points we're also making, there are people, and hopefully a lot of people, who really care about you. But they don't know you're going through something until you tell them. How many times after the fact did you hear, well, if all I knew was they needed $100 to get their medicine, and they would have told me, I would have found a way to get them the $100. But because they didn't, and they decided to be, self-sufficient in a way, because they didn't want to bother anybody. I think people have to try that out first before you can really be confident you're bothering somebody. Sometimes it's tiptoeing, right? You bring something up. If someone wants to follow it, then you've got a conversation. And you can tell when you're looking for something and people know what it is, but they don't want to engage with you. And that's a tip, that maybe you need to disassociate who you're around and reassociate. Shows like Kelly's, like mine, like all the people in our group, invite people into the audience, recognize people, support people, and hopefully that gives you the green light to say, well, I know, like Beverly, it's always offering 15 minutes of free time to anybody who wants to talk.
Yeah.
She wouldn't say that if she wasn't going to support that. So if you get the benefit of a Kelly or a Jason or a Beverly who say, I'm open, without a financial interest, without thinking I'm going to turn you into a client, because we get better. As we help more people, we can help even more people as we get better at doing that. So with that said, don't want to neglect the audience, especially Carl Dakin, who's another beautiful soul.
Yes.
He's working so hard. He's got 150 plus everyday newsletters he's put together. And, once you can get that routine, that discipline, it makes you want to keep doing it. Habits drive you towards the habits you're in. And if you can put together some quality habits that sustain you and support you, that could be the missing link. Sometimes it's just a little bit to get you over the hump. Carrie's another joke. It would be utterly something to milk it, like Don said. Dennis is our rhymer. Great guy, 49 years in the same business. That takes perseverance. That takes the ability to adjust with dynamic change. Your quote is a great note. Thanks for sharing and caring. I know we all had quotes. I'm hoping you believe all of them were great. Agree, great to show up and not off to build good relationships. There's something to humility. There's something to being humble. And there's something to meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
And that's where judgment doesn't come in. I understand what you're dealing with. I hope to understand where you're at. And usually it's just a kind, empathetic gesture. Is there anything I can do to help you right now? Right? Because now you're putting it on them to say, well, if I had this or I could do this, I think it would make a difference. Well, now you got clarity. Most people, I've seen your type before. I know where you're at. I know what's going to work. And that's the last thing people want to know. They know what they need. They
Yeah.
just haven't figured a direction to get it, and most people live in a lottery mentality where they're hoping for that one big break. But even then, and there was a study which I was kind of amazed by, and they took the top lottery winners, people who won lots of money, and usually came from pretty humble situations. And they also polled the same amount of quadriplegics. And they found the quadriplegics had a better outlook on life than the
Mm.
lottery winners. So it's kind of all relative to what you make of your situation, not always being able to change it, but to embrace it and help other people in that situation. But more importantly, be with other people who are in that situation, because now you learn from each other, you support each other, and that's where communities turn into families. And you really think about that person in the best way. And when you hear something good about them, it's just as much as if you heard something good about yourself. And I think, again, we always talked in the past, if you can't do it, could we do it? Or could we help you do it? And I think that's always going to be universal. And some of the truths we share are universal truths that we're being dealt with 1,000 years ago or 5,000 years ago, because people are still people. And because we depend on machines, we forget about the kindness and the support you get from just being a person with another person, not worrying about status, not worrying about are they too good for me, too big for me, but just allowing yourself. So Kelly, a lot of great people here today, a lot of great conversations were happening. Hopefully when we're done, everybody feels a little bit better and then takes maybe some initiative.
Yeah. I mean, so many great things said there. And several that stand out and I want to piggyback on for sure is, yeah, life sometimes does feel everything can be going great, and then we get smacked by life and knocked on our rear. And I know that my my mom always told me growing up and in my adult life with some tragic things happening in my life, and she said, God never gives us more than we can handle. And I used to say, like, I just wish God didn't think so highly of me sometimes. Um, but it goes back to mindset, right? Because looking at when we're in that accident or whatever situation happens, and being aware of like, okay, there's a lesson here that I'm supposed to learn. I don't know why, don't understand why, but there will be a reason why this is happening to me, and understanding that this little thing called life, and that's why the awesome journey is called the awesome journey, because we're all on this journey together. We're all guiding one another to a destination that we're all guaranteed. That's the one guarantee we all have. And knowing that everything that does happen to us is one for a reason and is a gift, but understanding that it doesn't always feel like a gift. I guarantee that. I mean, I can certainly say I have been very mad on an occasion with God, and I have a very strong faith. And that's okay too, because I'm human. And it's all right to be like, I don't get it right now. And I just feel super ticked off about what is happening in the world. And it's okay to be there. That's part of being human. It's about, we don't want to live there. Like, that's when it becomes a problem, because the process of going through any kind of trauma, again, to go back what I said earlier, whether it's losing a job, losing a relationship, any major life changes, we have to go through a grieving process of some sort. And you don't want to get stuck in it. And I think that's why, and I encourage people all the time, if you need a life coach, if you're not sure, I mean, reach out to someone, take advantage of the free consultations with people. Or a counselor, because we can get stuck. The first counselor I ever went to in my life was after the tragic loss of my father. And because I could not, even though I had some tools, it was too much at one time. And I didn't know how to handle the feelings. And one of the feelings, ironically, was anger. I did not know how to deal with my anger about the situation. I was overwhelmed with it, and I didn't know how to process it. And she did this little diagram about grief, and it started, in the you're right here, and here's all the things, that you have to go through. And when you go through all of them, you come out above, because that's called growth. And I do say this a lot too: if growth were easy, we'd all be doing it. Growth is painful. But if you get stuck in this process of the grief, any of the cycle that you go through, the anger, the denial, all the things, you will continue to spin in this space and not grow out of it. And for whatever reason at the time, that resonated with me so much, knowing like, okay, then let's get through this crap, because I don't want to live here, because I don't like where I'm at. It hurts and I want out of it. But you've got to face it. And now I feel like I'm going to go back to starting live streaming. When I started that last year, January, with Dawn, I was reminding myself, because I was feeling in a place with my own mental health. I wasn't feeling great. I wasn't feeling I was living in my purpose, all the things. And I thought, I need to go back to when I jumped out of a plane and live life that way, because such a good analogy, or it was for me, is going skydiving. And I was in this little tiny Cessna, and the door opened, and the jumper that was on my back scooted me to the door's edge, and I was supposed to put my feet under the plane, and he would roll out over the top of me. Well, when the door opened and I scooched to the edge and I looked down, your brain is going, hello, what on earth are you doing? And my feet immediately went to the wing as to protect myself and stop. And the jumper was like, Kelly, put your feet. I'm like, dude, I'm trying. But my brain was saying, oh, hell no. Finally, I put them under, and we rolled out, and the free fall was like this loud, chaotic, but every picture I do have a smile, I have to say. It was like euphoric, but it was loud and chaotic. And then when the parachute pulled, it was jarring and all the things. But then when it settled in, there was this silence that only people who have done it can understand. It's a silence like you've never heard before. And it's so peaceful, and you feel like, I felt in that moment, if this were to be it right now, I'm good. And not that I didn't want to land, because I did, but it's that whole sense of feeling such peace and safety and release of so much. And I thought, God, this is such a great example of what fear is, right? Because your brain is saying, oh, heck no, I don't want to go through that, because that's scary. I don't want to do it. But when you dive into it, roll into it and go, you go through it a lot quicker, and you get to the other side and you can go, oh, now I see why. I don't know anybody who's gone through any kind of difficult time, tragedy, whatever the situation, and get to the other side of it and say, man, I wish I would have waited another day to get here. But however long it takes you to get there, that's okay too. Because you can't compare ourselves. And I think that's the last point I want to make on this round is social media, as great as this is, and we can help one another, we can have conversations, we can share stories, is we can't self-compare, because everybody's journey is different. I can say, just from my own personal experience, losing my father as tragically as my family did, there was 3 of us, my mom, my brother, and I. We all grieved wildly different. Same situation, completely different. And so I think that's something that a lot of people tend to do on social media, is self-compare. Oh, I see. I know that he went through this, and look, he's doing amazing. We can't do that to ourselves, because our journeys are different, and you don't know what maybe they went through, because you don't see all the things. So I think I'll leave it there this time too.
Well, I think you make some tremendous, valuable points. I think the opposite now of thinking of what we're talking about is the opposite of gratitude is taking things for granted, taking people for granted. How many times does someone pass away and it's like you have regrets, you have guilt? You could have seen them, you could have called them, you could have shared a nice card with them. With e-cards, it takes 20 seconds to have a funny card go out to someone who might be able to cheer up their day. But, when you appreciate everything around you, when you don't take things for granted, even eating is a big privilege. Some people don't have that opportunity, a roof over your head, a family. And if you have that, not only should you count your blessings, but you should go out of your way to show that, to share that, because every time you say goodbye to someone, you don't know if you're going to say hello to them again. And you don't want the last time you're with them to be something frivolous like, oh, you didn't bake your cake right, or, you find the smallest things to make the biggest problems out of. Instead of saying it was no, how many times it's so nice when you say, I'm so embarrassed, I'm so ashamed, and someone says, that's no big deal. And they're sincere about it, right? But you needed somebody to give you a little bit of a push to say, what it was, how did I get there? Thank you so much for getting me out of myself and out of my little things when I'm forgetting about the big things and the big people in my life, and everybody can change. And some people take somebody's past experience or activities and never let it go, right? He or she was mean to me when I was in the 8th grade with them, and forever they're just going to be in my bad list, versus how forgiving are you? Because, forgiveness is for you, not for them. And some people continue to hang on to people who have created all kinds of challenges, and they reflect back versus, hey, I'm done with it. I forgive you. I'm sincerely hoping things work out for you. And these are just thoughts you're talking to yourself anyways with. No one has to know, but it says, what is holding me back from moving forward? And sometimes there's a wedge there that you have to take out to open that door and to be a better person. And how you do what you do models for people around you. That's how you earn people's respect. It's like, I would have never done what that person did. I'm not as smart or as generous or forgiving. But it says, maybe it's the thing to do. And what isn't working, sometimes the opposite is what you need to do to make it work. And most people, until they're sick and tired of being sick and tired, they do something about it. And then a lot of those people quit. And I think the last thing you should ever think about is quitting, especially on yourself. You may say, I'm going to take a time out. I'm not going to make a decision here, or I know I'm in trouble, but tomorrow's a new day. And, for those people who thought it isn't worthwhile and I'm just going to leave this earth, you got to ask yourself, if you stuck around, what joys and pleasures are you yet to see? And how many people said, I never thought it would work out this good, and I'm on top of the world now. And I didn't have that vision. I didn't have that hope. And I think that's part of the healing, is say you're more than good enough. So many people have done more with less and been happy and successful. But I think to Jason's point, when you're continually working with someone, even if it's not seriously involved, those little things can make a big difference. A smile, we talk about greeting people when you're walking, saying hello in the elevator, how was your day? And meanwhile, you're sitting there anyways, why be quiet? Why be silent when you can add a word of encouragement, when you can see a young person and admire them for something they're not noticing? So I think sharing all these free compliments that are earned is a great way of spending your day, because you'll get a smile back. You'll get a thank you. So Jason, how do we continue to contribute to people's mental health when we're trying to maintain our own?
That's a challenge. I do want to share a quick story about smiling. So my wife just shared the story this weekend. We were in a group, and she was working with a coach, or somewhat of a coach, through work. And at one point he told her, smile at everyone you come across today and just try it. And she was, at the time, she was taking what's called the Caltrain in San Francisco Bay Area. Tens of thousands of people take it up and down the peninsula from San Francisco down to, I think, San Jose. Tough crowd. And so she works in tech. And so she did it. And she smiled at every person she came across that day. And, she probably got no smiles back, maybe some weird looks, maybe one, but she said that at the end of the day, she felt better. It really helped her personal. And, and you don't know, to your point, Don, you don't know, maybe someone doesn't smile back, but what that smile meant to them. And just that someone actually acknowledged me in a sea of people. And trust me, the Bay Area is a sea of people, all the most important person in their life running around. But just to take that moment and acknowledge another human being, another person, and just smile at them, no matter what, that might carry them through their day, and it might change their mind about how they see the rest of their life. We'll leave it at that. But that's you don't know what that means to somebody. And so that's what's such a key, is just being kind. Talk about mental health, be kind. Kindness from yourself and receiving kindness, it just touches you so deep. It touches us at the core of who we truly are. I love the saying that, not to go into a different direction, but, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And I think too often we get so stuck in that human experience, we forget that spiritual part, that we're connected. But to reconnect to that is a beautiful thing. It's an amazing thing. And I also want to talk about forgiveness. Yes, I actually teach a free class, talking about free classes. I do every third Thursday, I do a free online class about forgiveness. And that's what I tell folks, that it's not for them, it's for you. It's to release that silent tax, that burden that you're carrying around. You're forgiving that part of them that's inside of you. And that is what holds the weight. Mm-hmm. They could be out living their life, having a great time, but you're holding all those feelings and emotions, and it's messing your life up. Well, maybe not messing up, that may be a little extreme, but it's challenging your life. It's adjusting your life in a way that you don't want it to. And when you release that, you're better. And perception is projection. So as you project to the world is what you see in the world. So if you want to see a peaceful world, put peace into the world.
Yes.
If you want to see a happy world, put happiness into the world.
Yes.
And I'll leave it at that.
I love that so much. I just, because this is a perfect, sorry, Don.
Go ahead, please.
A perfect little segue, because the whole smile thing, this was part of a healing project for me through one of the most difficult times in my life. And that was on my checklist. Like, I had a checklist that it was get up, get dressed, go out and smile at someone. And then the whole point was because generally somewhere along the way, someone will smile back. And it's about getting that energy and feeling good. And it's honestly a training technique for salespeople. If you sit and you're smiling when you're reading your script or doing whatever, your message comes across way better than if you're just sitting looking at it. Smiling will physiologically change your energy and do things. And I also want to say, to exemplify both y'all's point just then, a smile will make the difference in someone's life. I know someone personally, and I mentioned him earlier, Ben Owen. A smile saved his life. He was planning on taking his life, and some woman at a gas station just walked by and smiled at him. Didn't say a word, but he was like, wow, I guess maybe somebody does give a crap about me. And that's what he took in, is somebody else cares. And so he's like, maybe I'll do it tomorrow. So it put off. So he's still here doing amazing things in the world. To go back to your point, Don, he's doing incredible things and saving so many other lives because of a smile that kept him from making that decision. And I don't want to get stuck on this this point, in the sense of, when people are considering taking their life, and I will say I've learned this too over the last year and a half, doing all these lives and having all of these conversations with people, is when they're in that state of mind, majority of them have said they feel like a burden to everybody else. And so I think the message I want to be sure to send is like, we're never a burden to one another, ever. There is always, always, always a solution to any problem, no matter how big it feels at the time. There's always an answer. There's always a solution that someone else can help you with. And there is nothing wrong with asking for help. It is the biggest gift you will ever give yourself. And I do want to say, I challenge, and we used to do this too, Don, is challenge everybody, go out and smile and see how that changes your own attitude and your own mindset, because it is truly impossible. And even God bless your wife for doing it where she did, because I'm sure she did get some looks. I was on the New York subway many years ago with a lieutenant at the Bronx PD. And I was, of course, smiling at people. And he's like, Kelly, don't do that here. Like, stop. but you can't help it, and because people were giving me false, negative looks back, or like, girl, what's up with you? But it just makes you feel better. And the reason I do it all the time is because I've been that person that needed a smile. I was that person that I had a checklist, for goodness sakes, that said, go out and smile at someone. That helped me keep going. You never know what someone else is going through. And that little smile, it doesn't have to be a sentence. You don't need to say anything profound. And I think that's the other thing that we, as in the human experience, I do love that you say that, Jason. We get caught in thinking we're supposed to say something so profound that's going to change someone. And you don't. You don't need to do anything. You just need to be there, be present, be safe, be human with one another, share a smile, because that's sharing love. And that's all that we need from one another. So I'll leave it on that this time.
That's so well said, and so valuable, because you're right. The main thing is be a human, right? Don't be the doctor, the lawyer, the professor, whatever the credentials or however you label yourself. Just be a person. And you're gifted with a reverse and a neutral gear. You can back down. You can get down to a level where all you do is look at the sky for a minute and say how wonderful the sky is. You don't have to, and I think Bob Berg makes that point with the go-giver. The value is in the giving, unless you're transactional and say, well, I just gave that person a smile, I got nothing for it. There's that saying of a butterfly that flaps its wings in South America creates a hurricane somewhere else in the world, right? Because they start moving the air around, and that just someone picked up on it. So you don't know the little investment you might have made. And I think to Kelly's point, some people are shocked by niceness, by goodness.
Mm-hmm.
They wonder, what do you want from me? What are you setting me up for? Mm-hmm. And those people, right, come home and they say, well, maybe that person meant something positive, or maybe there is something redeeming in me, something valuable that someone noticed, and makes me start thinking maybe there's more I'm not giving myself credit for. And you're just a person. You don't have total control. It'd be nice if you did, but that's what supports collaboration and cooperation. And the other big element is being proactive, going first. Some people say, I won't smile at anybody till they smile at me first. I'm not giving anything till I know I'm going to get something back. And that is so self-limiting. That is so like tit for tat versus, hey, I got so much of this happiness, I want to share it. You're doing me a favor when you allow me, like Carrie, to tell jokes, make people happier, or Dennis, who shares rhymes to make people happier. No one has to. Everybody could be just real business-like, and I'm this and I'm that, and let's keep it short to the point. And you don't want to get to the point. The point's the last place you want to get to. That's the sharpest point, and that's usually the end of the conversation. It's like, hey, we all are living together. We all should be supporting each other. And I do believe the answer to most problems is peer-to-peer. The government, the institutions, they don't have time, or a lot of times even intent, to go out and do a lot of wonderful things. But, the lady next door who is just recovering from surgery, how hard would it be to buy some brownies at the grocery store and on the way home drop them off? You don't have to go inside. You don't have to eat them. But, it's small things that you take for granted. What's $1 or $2? Like I said, my daughter, she carries around all these kits she puts together. And if she finds a homeless person or somebody else, she gives them one. And there's a $5 bill, so it's real money. It's not just a candy bar and a glass, but she also includes that. During COVID, she had this big setup on her porch and like a milk delivery box. And she put a big sign because back then delivery people were so valuable. To all people delivering, please help yourself to a water and a snack. I sure appreciate all you do. It didn't cost her much, and not that many people did, but she was always thankful when someone reached in took a bottle of water, took some potato chips or whatever she had in there, because she was motivated to help people, but also to recognize them, because there's a lot of people that have a really tough existence. They have a tough career. And it takes somebody to say, thank you, Mr. Postman or Mr. Fireman or Mr. Policeman, for all you do for all of us, right? Because they forget themselves, because most of the time and like everybody else, you remember the negatives. Someone yelled at you and called you something out of the blue, and that seems to take a higher priority in some people's minds versus someone who smiled at you and you said, well, not a big deal. And I think it's checking yourself at the door and asking yourself, do I got to stress this much about this? Will a little bit more time help me? Will backing up a little bit, like Jason mentioned, reflect, review, ask questions. You shouldn't be at the end of your line when you're doing things. You may get to the end of the line, but you should get to dealing with that sooner. Like Kelly says, I'm not feeling right. At that point, you don't know what it is, but you know it isn't what it used to be. So ask yourself, what happened during that day or during that week that changed and now made you change? And then how do you take action to unchange it? Because you're getting thrown with things all the time, and some things you just, hey, that's the weather. If it's going to snow a foot today, that's the way it's going to be. I can't control that. And I think that's the point we kind of made yesterday. The happiest people are the people who look at the future, not the past, who deal with things they can control, not things out of their control, right? Because now they're getting more productive, they're more directed, and you can build on goodness. And I think that's the key. Not only can you get out of a hole, but you can rise way above you where you ever would have been without that hole. And in some ways, adversity is something that after it's over, it's far easier to think. It's only when you're going through it in the beginning that's daunting. But as you're coming out of it, you're like, hey, I did it. And that in itself makes you more confident to address the next element. So let's just finish Dennis's. Well, first we got Carrie. Hope everyone has a great and cheesy day. I have to get out of the door. Well, good for you. And hopefully today's the day you get your tech job. Dennis comes back with, agree we should enjoy our birth on earth and try to help others. Will help you too. I never regretted giving too nice a present. I never regretted being too friendly to somebody. That's not the thing that ever sticks in my mind. If anything, it's regret. I should have done more. I should have been a better person that day. And I'm going to try to be tomorrow, again, without embarrassment or shame. Dennis says, agree, smile helps go that extra mile to be happier and show folks we care and share. It's so right, because some people are never happy. They're never laughing. They go through life looking at their shoes instead of looking at the world, and you can change that if you know that could help you. So Jason, coming up on the final minute or two, what's your thoughts? I know our focus was on mental health, and hopefully we did something in that direction.
Yeah, it was a great conversation. Thank you so much for inviting me for today. I say that, in Buddhism, we say that compassion is a verb. So you recognize that something's wrong and you take action. But guess what? Self-compassion is also a verb. Amen. So, that we talk a lot about recognizing what's going on inside and kind of getting help for it and stuff, and then take action and then do something. It's so important. It's not pertaining to this specifically, but the old saying about, well, I'll believe it when I see it. But there's a book and a saying that says you'll see it when you believe it. And that's a change in a mindset. And so whether it's your internal work, helping with community, being with someone else, know that it gets better. Know that you will come through, that you will find that moment of stillness in your life, and all things will pass.
That was terrific. I think as a closing statement, that probably, put it all together for people. The saying, faith is the belief in the invisible, in knowing it's there, even though you can't see it yet, can't touch it, or you know it's coming, or it will come if you allow it the time and the place for it to show up. And I think that's so important, is having faith, having a belief system, knowing people are good and most people are better than most people give them credit for. But I think the last point you make is self-care and self-compassion. You can't be good to anybody if you're not good to yourself. And you can be better for everybody if you are strong, confident, healthy, optimistic when you go into battle and you got all your tools necessary and you're happy just to be in the game.
Right.
Like I say, just knowing that you're alive today, that you're accessible to all the beauty, all the books in the world, all the video. I mean, there's endless what's available to you. And so many people, again, focus on the little things that don't matter. You know, they major in the minors and they can minor in the majors, you know, and switch that around. So Kelly, it's always an honor and a privilege to have you on. You're a wealth of information and motivation to so many. What's your last thoughts?
I mean, it was such a great conversation for so many reasons, and I can't help but think at the end, after what you both just said right now, specifically Jason, is, you know, looking at life. Life isn't happening to us; it's happening for us, and it really truly is about mindset in so many ways. And I feel like this conversation is going to end on what I say all the time. You know, the other thing we've been talking about is the ripple effect. You know, when we feel like we don't want to smile, but we go out and smile at someone, it will change someone else and they will go out and it will continue on and on and on. So remember that and be the source of the beginning of the ripple. And as I always say, and I will end it here, is go out and shine so bright that others can't help but shine too.
I always love that. No matter how many times you say it, it just really, really makes me feel so much better, and hopefully everybody else, because optimism is contagious, you know, and if you're going to spread something that will last and will continue to pass on to other people, because I think that's what your legacy is. You're only here on earth for a short time, but I know the people have been so important to me, continue to live with me and through me.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I took them for the ride, even if they're not here physically. They're always going to be honored and projected. And it's always great to give credit to other people.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, that makes you look like a better person, because you are a better person by putting yourself second. And that's not easy for a lot of ego people driven to do. So with that, come back Monday. I'll share with you real quick what our schedule is on Monday. We've got Carl and Irwin Jack, who's just an unbelievable gentleman up in Calgary that does only $200 million to $5 billion financing deals. You know, so that's pretty good. Beverly and Lori are coming back Tuesday. We've got Carl on Wednesday, and Kelly and a new lady, Ilona, who is a pretty interesting lady, is coming back Thursday. So thank you all for being here today. I can't tell you how grateful I am for this show and for all the experiences, because I get so much better when I'm with Kelly, when I'm with Jason, and when I'm this audience. If you're talking about exercise, this is the best way to get started in the day for all of us. So thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, audience.